So, Knights of Guinevere. I had some issues with it. There was a lot of cool things about the show, but you can look up any review of this show and hear my exact positive thoughts. People are going insane over this show. The show isn't starving for compliments or money, I would imagine, so I'm just going to make a list of the things that I didn't like about it for those of us who didn't think it was peak. Also, if you haven't watched it yet, you might want to do that, because otherwise this is going to make no sense. First off, this starts with a narrator that never comes back, which is a terrible sign. Narration is fine, but it has to be consistent and it has to have a purpose. The purpose of this narration was to do a little switcheroo. The narrator says there's a princess in desperate need of rescuing while presenting this rich little girl on screen. It's meant to make you think that this girl, Olivia, is who the narrator is talking about, but it turns out to be the girl's android, Guinevere, that needs rescuing, because Olivia is abusive to her. One of the weird things about this is that if the narrator wasn't there, the switcheroo still could have happened, because Olivia is clearly depressed about something. We spend a lot of time with her sulking around and having almost zero reaction to this park that can make dreams come true. Something terrible has clearly happened to her, but we immediately stop feeling bad for her when she starts ripping at her android's organs. Suddenly her depression comes off as coldness in the beginning of ultimate villainy. It would have come off stronger if there wasn't a narrator telling us how to feel, because boy, let me tell you, I was very annoyed watching this suffering robot jump off a cliff in agonizing pain as the off-screen voice went, "Yeah, she needs rescued, y'all." Like, yeah, no shit. Isn't this an adult show? We can figure it out. And what's even more absurd about this voiceover is the fact that everything the narrator has to say is explained all over again throughout the entire episode.
And this was a very long time ago indeed. It was beautiful.
Your future can be as bright and beautiful as all this.
Complicated machines that ran on blood and fear.
What's going on there?
While we're on the subject on machines that run on blood and fear, I don't really want to talk about how the fear aspect is completely absent from the episode, but upon hearing this, I thought to myself that maybe it was a dystopian fantasy that wouldn't have characters slowly but surely figure out that their world is indeed dystopian. The fact that the machines run on blood is a well-known fact in society that everyone just accepts as a cruel reality, which is quite realistic considering what people are willing to accept in our own reality. And here you thought I wasn't going to have anything nice to say. However, with the main character Franklin being so ignorant to it all, we probably are going to have that slow burn, "the park is evil?" realization after all. A. It's called Park Planet. B. What fucking park? There are about 4 frames of theme park in this episode. It is the reason for everything that happens in the entire show, and we see practically none of it. Main characters Andrea and Francesca sneak into the park, but we don't see them sneaking in. Hell, we don't even get to realize that they snuck in until later. We don't see the contrast between the luxurious world in the clouds and the scummy rundown world below. It's just a vending machine and blackness. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to admit that I didn't even fully grasp that the park was floating above the whole world at first, because the planet itself in this shot was so fucking dark. And I get it, they don't have the money to animate or draw a lot of backgrounds, but I feel like there was a lot of things in this episode that could have been cut in favor of showing us more of the park. The gore, for example. I didn't need a POV shot of Guinevere's organs spewing out of her to feel bad for her. I can see how dangling intestines would be painful. There's also this scene where Andrea is yelling at an old guy for the same reason she yells at this guy, who has a name, so maybe he's a recurring character, and then he starts dying because fumes, which gets established later in the episode anyway. That would have been a great scene to cut for the sake of establishing what the park looks like, or maybe we could have gotten a scene where Frankie is watching one of the Guinevere movies and she's just enchanted by it, or something park related that isn't something like deadly fumes or security or littering. There's a magic to this park that I'm supposed to be able to relate to. Sure, we get those juicy, scrumptious Easter eggs that indie animation fans can't get enough of, but posters aren't stories. I'm seeing that a plethora of Guinevere movies exist, but I'm not seeing anyone interacting with these movies or with the news about the Guinevere breaking at the park. Like, do people care about these movies, or are they just shoved down everyone's throat? like Christianity. Every time we interact with a character who isn't Franklin, they have nothing nice to say about the park or princesses. Where is the fame of Guinevere even coming from? Who is her target audience? Rich people, probably, but where are they? They can't live at an amusement park, and before you say it, those are hotels, okay? I don't see any floating hotels or cruise ships. A lot of this episode feels like it expects us to already have the answers to these questions. It feels as though it's saying, you've seen a Disney movie, right? You've been to Disneyland, right? You've watched Children of Men, right? Yeah, it's like that. I understand that this is all a huge trope and there are inevitable elements to it that we should expect and inherently know about, even more so because a lot of the elements are based in real life, but I still want to actually see it because this is your dystopian story, what makes your slums different, what makes your rich elite stand out. 1984 and Fahrenheit 451 are both books about overregulation to the point of societal devastation, but they are entirely different from one another. They cannot be mixed up with each other. You can't just hand-wave your world building. That's the entire story. That's the entire point. It's a dystopia. It would be like watching a heist movie, but you never see the bank because you know what a bank looks like. It would take you out of the story. I also understand that this is the first episode and we're not going to know everything nor see everything. I am not upset that the episode ends without me knowing absolutely everything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm missing the incorrect information. For example, it's totally fine that I don't know what's going to happen to Andrea and Franklin moving forward, or that I don't know what happened to Olivia, or that I don't know what this giant sun thing is all about. These are fine not to know because they weren't what the episode was about. This is a first episode. And like it or not, it is the exposition episode. Every first episode is nothing but exposition. Nobody likes it, but we have to do it. You don't have to establish absolutely everything, but you do have to establish the characters, the setting, and what the story is going to be. And would you look at that? We're missing half of the setting. That is unacceptable, especially when you're calling your episode a pilot and not episode 1. A pilot implies that you're not sure you're making it to episode 2. And that's the real reason why this lack of exposure to the park bugs me so much. If you're not sure you're making it to episode 2, then why are you relying on episode 2 to explain where the characters are? If I can't trust you to spend the resources that you do have to tell the story competently, then why would I trust you with my resources? It might sound harsh, but this is a product. If I were asking you to give me money so I can make a pair of shoes, which presentation would you be more comfortable investing in? One where I give you a full concept of what the shoes are meant to look like, or one where I show you only the laces and soles. Oh, and here are those little rings the laces go through. Plus, I just want to point out that the Amazing Digital Circus did it in less time and less celebrities. Giving a character 3 fucking names that isn't their first, middle, and last name is ridiculous. Granted, if it was my only problem with the show, it'd be a damn good show, but it's not the only problem, so it bugs me more than it normally would. But that's not the reason why I brought her up. I really want to like her because I like her character design, I like her voice, I like that she opened a beer bottle with her fucking eyeball, that was hilarious, but I don't like her motivation. She comes off as a bootlicker. She lives in this shitty, scummy world. She's miserable, and so is everyone else around her, and it is blatantly because of the park. She literally watches garbage rain from the park onto her home, but she loves the park anyway. I know it's because she went there when she was a kid and met Guinevere in person, but seeing people basically dying for the place makes it difficult for me to relate. Again, it would probably help if I had actually seen the park, or had more than a few seconds to connect with Guinevere. Hopefully in future episodes she'll get more development and her relentless ambition will hit a little closer to home. Maybe it does for proper Disney adults, but not so much for me. I mean, maybe she likes it because it's a nicer, brighter place than the surface, as somewhat communicated through one of her hallucinations. But again, it's a little harder for me to relate to personally. With that being said though, Frank's flaws as a character have absolutely nothing on... She's so fucking annoying. She is clearly meant to be the funny character, the one who points everything out, the comic relief. She's not funny. All she ever does is complain about her life, which again, because of the lack of world building, I can't relate to or even begin to understand. She's an engineer for the park. People hate her for it because she works for the park and the park is bad, which is weird because it seems like everyone works for the park. I'm guessing she doesn't make a lot of money doing it because she complains that she's just trying to get by like everybody else. But according to Frankie, it's a really good job. But then again, Frankie is probably just saying that. I don't know. But even if I did fully understand where she was coming from, she never says anything funny. The funniest, and I say this with quotations because I didn't laugh, the thing she says is about Frankie's boss, Sparky. Whenever Frankie finds Guinevere, she's like, Sparky's just gonna chop her up. And Andy's like, chop who up? Whoa! The reason why it didn't work was because I knew how Andy was going to respond the second Frankie started talking. It's towards the end of the episode, and Andy has done a lot of screaming and what the fucking at everything, so by the time we get to a joke that could actually land, I'm just tired of hearing her. On top of that, every time Andy says something, no one responds to her. When we first see her, she's yelling at her old high school friend about social justice or something. Her old high school friend? Crickets. There's a random scene where she yells at some old guy because he spit on her shoe. The old man coughs. And now, here we are with Frankie. Andy is freaking out, asking if someone has been imprisoned and or killed. Frankie blinks. The reason why everything Jax says is funny or shocking isn't because of what he said all by itself, it's the reaction of the characters. If no one cares about what Andy is saying or doing at any given moment, why should I care about what she's saying or doing at any given moment? One thing that's somewhat interesting about her is that she's hiding the harsh realities of the park from Frankie. Frankie is optimistic about the park, but the park is clearly something she should be wary of. And even though Andy is quick to go screaming her opinions elsewhere, she's not willing to do the same for Frankie because she wants to protect her innocence. God, I want to give props to the creators for being able to communicate this idea with so little input. However, Andy's little gesture to not ramble on to Frankie kind of falls apart when considering the very first scene of the episode. Andy is just spewing anti-government rhetoric right in earshot of Frankie, who seems very used to said rhetoric. So it seems like Frankie is very aware of Andy's true feelings towards the park anyway. But just like every other character, she just doesn't care. How am I supposed to care about Andrea and want to buy a plushie of her if no one else does? His name is Sparky. What is this, Bluey? I really dislike this character. Compliment number 3 incoming, I like his design. I like his blacked out eye and his vape. What I don't like is how he just gives up Guinevere because Andrea is poor? At first, all he cares about is making money from scrap. He hates when Frank isn't working and doesn't care about her enough to give her the android for the sake of her hopes and dreams. Then all of a sudden, he's a drug dealer and claims that drugs make more money than scrap, but also he wants Guinevere because it's enough money to buy another ship. For scrapping. Then he really likes Frankie, but then he freaking punches her in the face over the android. But then all of a sudden he's sentimental towards Andrea because she said she got fired, and I don't even want to talk about the fact that Andy says that money is her motivation as opposed to what her sister wants. Like, he was meant to be an obstacle, but he wasn't. He just gives up. He's aggressive when the plot needs him to be, he's passive when the plot needs him to be, he's compassionate and or agreeable whenever the plot needs him to be. He's a fucking prop. He's useless. I want him scrapped. Yeah, it's a character-driven critique. I'm starting with a nitpick here. She's gray. She's meant to mirror the magic and grandeur of a Disney princess, and she's gray. Why does this matter to me? Because color palette matters. These colors don't communicate that of a fun, bubbly, not a care in the world princess. It is the color palette of a Disney villain. Just because she is in a dress and has giant Mickey Mouse ears doesn't mean she can't be intimidating. Just look at the Queen, Maleficent, Jafar. These characters are dressed very nicely. They are wicked entities who value wealth over the well-being of others, so it's only natural that they will look immaculate. The closest Disney princess she mirrors is Elsa from Frozen, but Elsa's palette is very light. Her hair is high blonde, it's almost white. As a matter of fact, it's white in the sequel. Her dress is blue, but it's light blue, with dark blue being at the bottom of the dress because it's a nice gradient. Guinevere's blue is dark blue all over, which invokes different emotions from the blue on Elsa's dress, and even her eyes. Guinevere's blue is the same blue as Princess Anna's skirt. I bring this up because little girls most of the time would rather be Elsa, not Anna, and part of it is because of Anna's character design. She is in very dark clothing, much like a Disney villain. Granted, it's because it's cold out and dark clothing is warmer than light clothing, but it made her a character less popular than her sister. And lastly, Elsa's skin isn't freaking gray! If she was gray, I can imagine she would be a lot less appealing to children. I know this because Ursula is gray, or light purple, which is practically gray. And notice that she's a Disney villain. Maleficent is also gray, or greenish gray, who is again a Disney villain. Gray is not a happy color. Dark blue is not a happy color. Purple is generally not a happy color. All three of them are on Princess Guinevere, and it takes me out of the story. Why the fuck is she so scary? She's all fucked up and bleeding everywhere, but she's also described as an innocent princess who needs to be rescued. But also, she could take on a gargantuan monster all by herself with no weapons and missing body parts. And also, she's a symbol of everything that's wrong with society, both in and out of universe. But also, it's not her fault, she's just a tool, and she needs rescued. But also, she should really creep you out. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel when it comes to her. Am I supposed to be sad for her? Is she a badass? Is she just plain creepy? Is she Yzma? So, is everyone's blood blue? Is it just android blood? Are they killing people to get it? If so, who? Is it just a special kind of blood that you can breathe too much of and cough up? Or is Andrea that old guy coughing up blood? Wait, it's a drug now? Blood is drugs? What? But it's everywhere. You can't just call it an illegal drug all of a sudden. I mean, you can, but I don't get why you would. Like, isn't it being literal blood scary enough? What is going on? Andrea and Francesca are the knights in Knights of Guinevere, but I don't see them as such. The episode really wants you to focus on the idea of a rescue. This is a rescue. Guinevere needs rescued. When will her knights come? But they aren't really rescuing Guinevere, they're using her. Franklin wants to use her to get a job at the park. I mean, I guess fixing her and taking her to the park would inevitably bring her back to the park where she belongs, and that's Frankie's full intention, but there's some issues with that thinking. For one, Frankie never states that she wants to return her to the park safely. She only talks about getting a job at the park, not really putting into consideration what will happen to her afterwards, so it's somewhat safe to say that Frankie isn't really thinking about Guinevere as an individual, but as a collectible, and as a tool, which aligns with her short-sighted and immature way of thinking. But even if we were to say that Frankie wants to return Guinevere to the park so she can go back to making children's dreams come true, it's not the rescue that Guinevere needs. She needs to be saved from Olivia. And I already talked about Andy's motivations, just wanting money from Sparky or whoever she expects to get money from. Frankie's new job, I guess? Either way you spin it, this is not a rescue mission. This is two crownies trying to get by. It'd be like calling someone a brave warrior for owning a slave who used to have abusive parents. Guinevere is being swung around like a $2 hooker and I'm supposed to root for it? For two, let's say yes, this is totally a rescue and not several people using Guinevere for their own personal gain. Frankie and Andy simply make for dog shit nights right now. They get their asses kicked twice. The first time around, they get out of it by giving up the thing they're trying to rescue, and the second time around, their lives are saved by the thing they're trying to rescue. They can't fight, they're terrible problem solvers, and their banter isn't even funny. Compare this to a different anime, granted not an indie one or even a popular one, Samurai Champloo. It's about two samurai who by chance come across a girl who desperately needs their help to find her father. You may find it unfair to compare Andy and Frankie to Mugen and Jean, two intensely skilled samurai, but it's not the fighting aspect I want to talk about. Mugen and Jean are assholes. They do what they need to do to get by, and they are not opposed to doing something shady. Just like how Andy and Frank are supposedly struggling and are willing to do some shady shit to get money. Mugen and Jean just so happen upon Fu, the girl I mentioned, just like how Andy and Frank just happened upon Guinevere. And both sets of characters unexpectedly end up becoming the guardians of an unlikely friend in need. The difference is that in Samurai Champloo, Mugen and Jean are actually capable of overcoming obstacles by themselves. Yes, Fu also helps them in the final battle, much like how Guinevere comes in at the end, but Mugen and Jean are seen fighting their own battles beforehand. We can see their potential as bodyguards long before Fu even becomes a factor in their lives. Andy and Frankie, on the other hand, only ever get lucky in their situations, making them seem wholly incompetent for the task they're destined to have. Sure, Frank is really good at fixing things, but that's not the only skill that's required of her to be able to do this. In Samurai Champloo, Mugen and Jean don't plan to take advantage of Fu. They make a deal with her and follow through with it, so they actually rescue her when she's in trouble. And lastly, in Samurai Champloo, Mugen and Jean are actually funny.
Come on, you heard what he said right before we started fishing.
Fishing is a life and death struggle between man and fish. Forget this and you'll most certainly get hurt.
He really said that. You can't even catch fish. They're swimming right in front of him.
We should have laughed. It's not nice.
They do this thing called reacting. When Mugen says something or does something fucked up, people respond to it. And that's funny. The reason why all these things matter is because this is the pilot. It sets up what to expect for the rest of the season, and so far is looking like a show full of plot holes, poor world and character building, and mixed messages. I'm highlighting these concerns not to talk down to anyone or shame people for liking something or to shatter hopes and dreams, but to make these problems known so they can be solved early on before the show becomes a sloppy, embarrassing letdown like some other shows we're aware of. If we're going to replace Hollywood, we need to heighten our standards, become greater storytellers, and take our audiences to the next level, which are all things I know Glitch and other indie creators are capable of. Now stop gawking at me and go buy those Guinevere plushies. Stay feral.